you can't do everything yourself, and you got to have good partners and people that are good at doing what they do, and working
Sure.
with them and collaborating with them, because you're going to get a way better product than trying to do everything yourself, or
100%.
to hire every single person or aspect within your own company. Most of the time doesn't make sense.
Welcome back, everybody, to Heroes on Set, the show for digital content creators. Today, I have a very special guest in the building, Justin Wu. Justin and I have worked on numerous projects together, but I wanted to bring him in today to talk about some business stuff and some of the cool things he's doing around the Las Vegas Justice League. So, Justin, thank you so much for coming in here today.
Thanks for having me, Aaron.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. So I want to start first with talking about how we met and started working on projects together. I remember it was back during the pandemic. I was working over at Sapphire, and we had all just been let go because they had to shut the whole club down. And I remember I was home for like a couple days, wondering what I was going to do. And you were one of the first people that called, like in that time, said, "Hey, I got a cool project I need some help with your wife, Lydia Ansel."
Yeah.
To do a really awesome, it was editing a music video that you guys had shot in Bora Bora, I believe.
Yeah, so that was like the first one. We really took advantage of the pandemic to do a lot of travel
Yeah.
and to do a lot of creative things. The first one, we just randomly went to Tahiti, and I took a bunch of equipment with me, drones and whatever.
Yeah.
And we kind of put together a quick music video, and then when I came back, I really wanted you to help me to get that edited up.
Yeah, and it was a gorgeous video, and like I was on the beach and everything. I'll show some clips during the show
Cool.
of what it was, but yeah, like what was like the inspiration behind it? And can you talk a little bit about your wife? And she's a musician.
Yeah, so Lydia's a DJ electric violinist, and she's from town. Probably if you're in Las Vegas, you've probably seen one of her shows. And one of the things during the pandemic, as the music and entertainment kind of ground to a halt, the things that I said was, one, let's get out of here and let's go travel around the world to the places that were open. And two is, let's really try to do something different with like your kind of brand and the different things that you're doing, instead of being tied to like these, entertainment, which was shut down. If we get out there and we do like hotel destination marketing, for example, that could be a great opportunity for you. So that's something that we really, during the pandemic, tried to expand upon. And we did a lot of like cool drone videos for hotels, where it's a combination of drone work of the property with her playing the violin.
Nice.
There's some cool things, and you can probably show some of those, as well as like she's done a lot of sponsored content. So she did something for McLaren Beverly Hills. The one for the Bora Bora was, I think it was I can't remember if it was the Intercontinental Hotel.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's cool. And so it's, been the best of both things, as being able to get out there and travel around the world and then continue to do cool content.
Yeah, it's been amazing. And yeah, the McLaren project, that was like the second music video that we worked on. That we filmed that here.
Yeah.
That was awesome, because you brought that McLaren, to the set, and we drove all around Vegas and took to your friend's private airport, whatever, and got some shots on the private jet.
So that was a fun project to work on. It wasn't all about the cars, and it was kind of a combination of the music plus the car, plus it was creative. We wanted to do all the like cool drone shots and different things in there. So I think we kind of nailed it on that. That was very cool.
Yeah, it came out really, really well, and it was a ton of fun to work on. I wonder, like, how has using video to help Lydia promote her business and other businesses that you've been a part of, like, how has video impacted your ability to market and advertise?
So video is amazing. And I want to say, like, today with like any kind of product type thing, video on social media is really the thing. You get some kind of content that's kind of cool and viral, and it really helps to sell your product. I mean, I've even worked with the original hoverboard here in town, like the IO-Hawk. I was working with those guys, and those guys were doing celebrities plus, video content plus social media. And that was like the word of mouth. Like, that's how they got all of that stuff out of there. And that's why every single celebrity wanted that, product. So
Yeah, and you've also, I'm trying to think of other things that we've done. I know that you've had me over a couple times to your home studio to also kind of do some consulting for filming stuff with Lydia on like green screens, like in your home, so we don't always have to go on set. You can do kind of more regular types of content.
Yeah, so we started that actually in pandemic as well. Her being an entertainer, she wanted to continue to play and entertain the audience, and it was you had that disconnect because the people weren't able to, come to see her shows anymore. There weren't any shows. We were on vacation in Hawaii for a while. We were stuck on the islands for like 3 months, and so like I had a bunch of equipment with me, including this this great Bose speaker. And I said like, hey, let's move this thing. Let's go and do Instagram lives. And that was like an amazing thing that she would play like, I think every Friday. So like that was our thing during the 3 months in Hawaii is we'd find a different location. She'd get all dolled up and like whatever, and then she'd make it was like I think we did like a 10 to 15 minute like live stream set, but like she'd get a really big audience of people that were basically had nothing to do and they wanted to see that kind of entertainment thing. And so we did that for a while, and then when we came back to Vegas, I built a green screen studio and we were doing like cool green screen backgrounds with it, and it was cool, but then it kind of became like taxing. Like it was, we wanted to move around and do a bunch of other stuff, and the amount of work that was required to put into that was like, okay, this is like a little bit much, and that we're gonna try to do some different stuff.
Mm-hmm. What are you guys working on now? Like, where are you guys taking like Lydia's stuff?
So Lydia's stuff, she continues to perform and does corporate, events and whatnot. And then we're still doing like the hotel destination marketing type projects. We're headed to Japan at the end of this month, so
Nice.
we should be able to do some cool stuff out there, which will be cool. I've been waiting for Japan to open up for forever now. It's been closed down for the last 3 years, but continuing to do that. And then, our other thing is we have a big philanthropy in Las Vegas that we've been doing that's just pretty cool. So we've been really directing a lot of like our time and efforts towards that because it's kind of taken off.
Yeah, and this is the Justice League?
Yeah, the Vegas Justice League.
Yeah, I want to get into that because I remember I saw like a social media post. I just like at a glance, and I just saw like Las Vegas Justice League, and I'm like, Justice League superheroes, like what is that? And then I saw you, like you were one of the founding members of it, and you were doing a lot of awesome philanthropic work around like digging into cold cases.
Cold cases, right? Yeah. I really didn't have anything to do with any of that stuff. And how that kind of worked was I think I was in Hawaii and I saw this company online that's in Houston, Texas. It's a lab. And they'd been doing these like crowdfunding of cases. And they, like they can take a case from a law enforcement agency and then take old DNA and use it with genealogical research, like, basically not 23andMe, but they take the same kind of like DNA profile that you would do from that. Mm-hmm. And people like upload these into like a database to help to solve crimes. So like say that, you had a missing cousin. Mm-hmm. You might upload your DNA into this database in hopes that sometime later on that would be able to be used to find them. Sure. But now that they have this database and it's pretty good countrywide, we've been able to help like Las Vegas Metro PD, for example, to solve, I think we're at 6 cold cases now. We've solved 6 murders in town, and we have, a lot more coming with
wow.
them. And it's pretty crazy. These cases go back 30, 40 years. And the perpetrators weren't in CODIS, which is like the regular way. Like if you were to find DNA, you run against the criminal database. Unfortunately, if you're not in the database,
they can't find
you. And there's a small window. So like the detectives, I think, 48 hours or whatever, the show is.
Yeah. Okay.
If they don't say like, hey, this is the husband, the boyfriend, whatever it is, and they can't kind of get through the clues and the investigation within a very short period of time.
Yeah.
I think the case quickly goes cold. And these cases, sat in a room for 30, 40 years.
Wow.
And now we're be able to reanalyze these and dig them up, and then with the help of the lab in Houston, reevaluate these cases and get leads back to the detectives based on this, the DNA and the genealogical research. So kind of like how it works would be like, they might find a target that was like your grandfather, for example. And then they would like trace back the family tree and then be like, hey, the grandfather had one son, and then like that he had three sons, and one of them lived in Las Vegas during that period of time, so you need to go and look at him. And so then the detectives will go and do look at you, maybe interview you, or go through and get like a DNA match to see if that your DNA matches, and then they would go through the process of getting like a 1-to-1 match, cheek swab or something like that after they confirm.
Crazy. Yeah. So, how many cases are you guys going through right now?
So I don't even know how many that there are. I know that I went into like LV, Las Vegas Metro PD, and they said, hey, take a look at this room. And this room is gigantic, and it's floor to ceiling black binders, and every single one of them has a number on it, and every single one of those is a cold case that's in town. Not all of those would be ones that we would be able to help them with the DNA. Those are just the cold cases in general. But there's probably a good amount of them in there, and it's tough because Metro doesn't have this like a cold case department. They had like somebody when we started working with them that was a part-time retired detective that said like, hey, I'll work on these cold cases. And since we started working with them, I think they've hired like 5 full-time people to work the cold cases with us. Wow. So now that we're our primary thing is that we generate funding to help to do the DNA like reevaluation from like the lab. So, but I mean, I think collaboratively it's great because we're working with them. We're working with Henderson PD, North Las Vegas PD, and now the coroner's office. So there's the coroner's office is interesting too, because it's a bunch of Jane and John Does. So somebody might be found under an overpass somewhere in Vegas. And if they can't identify that person via like, dental records or whatever, fingerprints, dental records, it kind of goes to just nothing. Unknown. Unknown. Wow. So it's great to be able to provide closure to these families after, whatever amount of time.
Definitely. And how did you get involved with this? Like, what was the inspiration to?
It was really just kind of random. I had another charity called Vegas Helps in town that we were doing little like good vibes, around $500 things during the pandemic that somebody needed like food assistance, or I'm trying to think, like a single mom was having a baby and she didn't have like all the startup supplies. So we would like Amazon them, diapers and a bunch of stuff to kind of get going, swaddling pads, bottles, or whatever things that they needed for that. And so then off of that, I saw the lab, and I said, hey, the one condition is like, if you guys want to work on a case, I want these cases to be in Las Vegas because that's where we live. So that case ended up being the Stephanie Isaacson case, which is like a world record breaking case. We only used, I think, around 15, the amount of 15 cells of human cells worth of DNA to find the murderer, and he had murdered like 2 people. So,
jeez, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Have you always been interested in philanthropies and
yeah, I always wanted to get back, and like Las Vegas is really like a huge city in terms of like people doing galas and fundraisers and raising money for different things. And I've been to galas where they've raised like $3 million for cancer or what different things. And it's cool that the charity that we're working on with the Vegas Justice League, each case is $5,000. And so like each person that I get to come on to the league that contributes the $5,000 is for like one working of one case.
I see.
And so like I was, when after I did the first one, I was like, well, I can keep doing these myself, or what about if I did something different and I went and tried to get a group of people from around the city, each person did contributed to the $5,000, and like the whole league would take the wins. And then if there was ever one that we couldn't solve, then you wouldn't, like, that one person wouldn't have nothing. You get what I'm saying?
Sure.
They kind of like the whole league gets all the wins, and then if there's any losses, it's kind of absorbed by the whole, the group.
Gotcha. Wow. Okay. Well, let's talk a little bit about your work prior to all this stuff. I understand that you were founder of a marketing company.
Yeah,
right?
Apollo Interactive. So it's probably one of the oldest first advertising and marketing agencies that was primarily like interactive marketing for the web. So I've worked for everyone from Jack in the Box to Public Storage to, I used to do all the hotel and casinos for like Mandalay Bay, Excalibur, Hard Rock Hotel and Casino, back in the day, and then entertainment stuff. Like if you looked at the clients that I work with, it's like you'd recognize every name, and there's
some heavy hitters on there. Yeah, I went on the website earlier and it was just
Keebler, like all Kellogg's.
How did that start?
When I graduated college way back in the day,
Yeah.
and it was like kind of the dawn of the internet. And I remember like we used to, somebody asked, I was working at a kind of an ad agency. It was like a financial ad agency. And they said like, hey, you're really good with computers and stuff. And that's what you went to school for. Can you figure out this whole like web page thing? And it was, back then it was literally like a logo, an address, like a phone number. You have your domain name. It was super like simple. And then, it kind of evolved from there. And I saw like, hey, this is a great opportunity. Like all of these people, this is going to be the next thing and the next way that people are going to, use this for marketing and then the sharing of data and whatnot. So yeah, it's like, that's a long, crazy story.
But it's fascinating. And it's I'm working, at a creative agency here in an e-commerce accelerator company. And so I'm always curious to find out like about, how other people had success building their marketing companies or their e-commerce adjacent sorts of companies. What were some of the big, successes that you had, or some of the big lessons that you learned during your time there?
I mean, it's crazy. I think that for like a lesson maybe is that we've had to really pivot a lot. So as a company, we started doing websites, and it was, the original idea was we were going to walk up and down the street and pitch people on like $100 websites. So we'd get every mom and pop to, pizza place, whatever it was, like a smog shop, to do a website. And then we found out like, hey, for $100, by the time we put in all of those hours, we're making like $10 an hour. And that's not really like a great thing. So why don't we go and sell it to like bigger people.
Yeah.
And so like we literally got on the phone, one of my partner, and would call, I think he called like Ice Cube, and Ice Cube was like, yeah, I need a website. And so we did his website. We did a bunch of like things in like rap, like Mac 10's website. I'm trying to think, like we went and pitched Death Row Records at one point in time.
Wow.
Then we started to do like entertainment. So like I did one of the original like Buffy the Vampire Slayer websites, and like Dawson's Creek. I don't know if people know those names, but those were like huge back in the day, because those were like the huge fan hubs. They had like message boards and way for people to kind of communicate online, and like literally people were on those boards 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, talking about those entertainment properties. So it was like kind of the beginning of that, communications and like, I guess, groups that, like today we have like a Facebook group where somebody is a fan of something.
Sure.
They get in there and they interact about it. Back then there were the message boards that were on the websites, and people did it that way. That's how they got all their information about the episodes, or watched, trailers and teasers and things like that.
And how did you go about like pitching these big properties?
So it was cold calling. My partner literally picked up the phone and called people, and it was just like at the right time that everybody started to want it. And then it kind of became word of mouth that like we had built up such a big roster of big things that we would get, referrals. Like people would be like, hey, on the more sophisticated things like Jack in the Box, then it became more like agency, like ad agency, and then you'd have to put together a whole pitch. So like, a company, when they wanted to redo their website, they would go out to, 5 or 6 different companies and have them do a whole, song and dance to win the business. And it was kind of a crazy process.
Well, and I imagine there was kind of like some evolutions that went on as like when you first started, kind of getting some traction, seeing what works, seeing what people want. And then, your ability to scale that to take on bigger and more customers.
We started primarily in the web, and we did like anything that touched the website type stuff. But then that evolved into like online advertising. So then, as Google emerged, so like I was before Google. And as Google emerged, and then they had like, you could buy keywords and all of that type of stuff, that became part of our business. And then, I'm just trying to think. Then, in 2009, social media came around, and then it was like social media marketing, which we didn't really like get into. I mean, we assisted people with like creative and whatnot on that, but we didn't really do social media management per se, because it wasn't very lucrative. But then we got into like online media advertising and buying. So like buying banners on other sites to drive traffic to people for their, their campaigns, whether it be like Jack in the Box, and it was, multi-million-dollar buys that, where they were starting to shift budgets away from television, like, Super Bowl commercials and things like that, and putting them online. So like developing all the creative for those, and campaigns, and working with advertising agencies together to kind of deliver big media plans.
That's crazy.
And then that wasn't even the end of that.
Yeah.
Then we kind of even got out of the whole idea of working for clients, because at some point in time we were like, hey, the whole thing is shifting. Everybody is kind of doing like this. Every ad agency does it. It's a real pain to win business. So like to go and win a multi-million-dollar internet, interactive account was like a long process that could take 2 years and like tons of money of pitching and creative. And then we said like, hey, we have this kind of machine and we can build websites and do all of the tech stuff. Why don't we work for ourselves? So we started to go into like more like lead acquisition. So now my company does primarily like lead acquisition. So we get like a lot of healthcare leads, mortgage leads. We broker and sell those to different people, like the companies, and we have like an Amazon department. So we have our own products that we develop and we market and sell those as well.
What kind of products do you guys?
So everything from like dog beds to car covers. It's the kind of random stuff that you wouldn't think, but like we develop products in China, like brand them, market them, and sell them on Amazon. And like we literally don't really ever even touch the products. Mostly it's mostly at Amazon, so they go from China to the Amazon warehouse and then to your house.
To your house, yeah. So you never have to deal with like order fulfillment and like inventory.
A lot of that type of stuff. It just sits
in
their warehouses. So.
That's awesome. What's some advice for like a company that's starting to grow and noticing I might have to pivot this way, pivot another way, and still kind of like, not get stuck in a certain notch that's a little tricky or is not really as profitable as it needs to be? Like, how did you guys know when it was the right time to pivot, and how did you guys handle like growth and development of your business?
Know. That's kind of like a little bit of a gut feeling, but if you're like aware of your competition and you start to see that like, hey, everybody's doing this exact same thing and it's becoming really hard, sometimes it's better to like find a niche, something that you're really like good at and you specialize in, because a perfect example is like web type stuff and anything that touches the web. That's like a huge range of services that we did. And then like, it's not necessarily to be try to be the best at everything. You have to have like a lot of staff doing a lot of different disciplines to get there. And sometimes it's better to like specialize in one little, spot, whether it be like the search engine marketing, the creative, this and that, and not try to do the entire thing across the board. Sure. Because it's logistically like very complicated.
Yeah, you can't be a master of everything.
Yeah, but if you're like doing some other kind of business, it's like really keeping an eye on your competition and seeing kind of where you fit in the mix. It's like what's your price point in comparison and your value that you provide to the consumer, and modifying that or looking for that spot, the sweet spot of something that's like different, unique, that it's easier to sell it that way than to be the same with everybody else.
Sure. And for you personally, what are some of your personal like philosophies as far as like being successful in business and like endeavors that you're taking on?
I don't know. I'd say for people, like a lot of the times I see people, because I mentor people a lot that come from like college that are in an art background and they want to start their own businesses and like startups and things. And one of the things that I say to them is like, get going and try to do things. A lot of people get stuck in like always writing a business plan or like trying to work out those type of things, and they never actually get going. And it doesn't really do you any good to constantly be, working on a business plan forever and ever. It's good to know what it is that you want to do, but then at the end of the day, you got to go and do it. We didn't have a business plan at my company. We did it like after we had an MBA come and like do this stuff. And then they wrote this great business plan up, and I like looked at it and I'm like, you basically just you're kind of telling me what we already do. You know what I mean?
Sure,
and like
sure.
you've kind of like it's really great. You've analyzed like what we do day to day, and you just kind of have to be practical about it and like kind of figure out that type of stuff, and like don't get stuck in legal and trademarks and all of this type of stuff, because you're never going to get going if you just keep behind, trying to write a business plan, trying to get like trademarks, trying to do this and think about everything.
Trying to get everything perfect.
Yeah.
Right?
Getting everything perfect. You're never going to get going, and you really just got to take a leap of faith sometimes and like say like, hey, this is a good idea. Like, let me get something out there. Let me get a minimally viable product out, an app or something, and like see what people think about it, and then take it from there and then evolve.
And another kind of follow up to that is like, as you're kind of getting things going, trying some things out, how did you deal with like failures or things that didn't go perfectly well out of the gate?
I've seen like tons of failures in my life too of ideas. And then like after I got done with the ad agency and doing that was a while ago, like about 2007, I kind of went into retirement. I started to do apps, and I developed a ton of app ideas, and some of them were like really, really great. And maybe they were like a little bit before their time. You got to try and, I don't know, like for me, part of the fun is building something up and trying. And so like, I don't mind like failing a little bit, or like you do something and then maybe you don't know what's going to be out there. And the next day there might be somebody giant that's like the same idea that you had. And then there's no point in you doing it. So you kind of like, it's hard. You're like, okay, I'm not going to do that because it doesn't make sense.
Sure.
But
sure.
yeah, it's all about, trying to figure out and pivoting and,
Yeah. And just not letting it like, letting failures kind of beat you down, just kind of like learn from them and then, make an adjustment and maybe, maybe try something different or a variant.
Yeah, definitely try to like learn and see and optimize. I mean, even social media, or you can take this in anything that you're doing. You don't want to keep doing the same thing over and over. If it's like not working, you got to like look and say like, hey, what is it that I'm doing? What could I do better? Like, how much time am I spending on this? Like, what's the overall, net? Because like I see people all the time and they do their social media, they spend a lot of time on it, and you look and they got like 5 likes and, there's no engagement on things. And I kind of wonder like, hey, you spend a lot of time doing that stuff and you're not really getting anything out of it. And you're definitely not getting more sales and that type of stuff because there's just nothing there. So like, don't keep doing the same thing, do something different. Like, think about it, get some smart people on the team to help you. That's, a big thing too, is working with you. You can't do everything yourself, and you got to have good partners and people that are good at doing what they do and working with them and collaborating with them, because you're going to get a way better product than trying to do everything yourself, or
100%.
to hire every single person or aspect within your own company. Most of the time doesn't make sense.
Yeah, no, that resonates completely, because like a lot of projects I've worked on, and in my earlier career, I was kind of like a one-man band. I could do, as far as video production is concerned, I could kind of do it all. But like seeing how much better projects can be once you have a competent and like passionate team with you, it's completely different. It's so much better. So how did you? Did you have mentors that you worked with, and like as you were setting these businesses up, and if so, how did you find them?
Yeah, there's different people. I mean, listening now, it's like you can listen to like tons of different podcasts and different people talking and reading books about them, and kind of learning through their experiences is always a great thing. But I mean, a lot of it's just like kind of looking out there. I mean, if the internet's, you spend time, you get lost in everything that everybody's doing, and like social media, for example, look out there at like what other people are doing and seeing what works and emulating and taking those things and then like making them better, or taking an idea from how one person is marketing something and be like, this is really working for them. That really worked. And maybe trying to apply that to yourself and, getting those little things out of that.
Mm-hmm. But was there like any people that you knew that you kind of leaned on for advice, or business advice, or marketing, or advertising, or any of those arenas?
No, for me, I was more on like the design side of my business. So like I had 3 partners. There's 3 of us that started the company. I was like the design creative person. Then I had Dave, who was the marketing person, and then Richard, who was like more of the tech person. Okay. So like he did like all of the server, type stuff. And so for me, creatively, like one of my mentors was a woman named Margot Chase. And she was like a logo designer. She designed everything from like the Dracula poster to like my logo for my company to like a lot of stuff for Hard Rock Hotel and Casino. She did the Buffy the Vampire Slayer logo, and tons of logos, like really, really impactful, powerful brands, and built them. And was just amazing at her craft. And she's, if you go to like design school, she's one of those people that they probably teach her, and her name is in the textbooks as being like a absolute master of what she did. And I had a lot of respect for her, just seeing what she did, and she always kind of drove me creatively to try to be better.
Wow. Did you what was it? Has this always been your passion? Like what you, as far as like getting into marketing, tech, design, like where, kind of what were your passions when you first started getting like work as a professional or getting out into the world?
I think I like the creative part about it, and it's like maybe more of like the business side of it, and then how creatively you could go and solve problems.
Mm-hmm.
So, one of the first things I did, I remember I worked for public storage. I went and actually sat in their like call center
Mm.
and like heard people making calls to like buy the spaces. And it was really insightful because you, by like looking at those aspects of the company and how it works and how the consumer interacts with the brand or the company and what they need and the process, it was very insightful on how to better develop a process or a system to sell, for example, the storage units. It's simple things like that. Just really like looking at it, analyzing a problem. Even at like the Sapphire thing, it's just like, hey, CES is coming around. What could be different? What could you do? You're not really into robotics and things like that. But then it was such a silly like idea that Shai came up with, and I helped with like the stripper robots,
Uh-huh.
right?
Yeah, that was huge.
And they weren't even robots. It was like they had some mechanical parts to them.
They're kind of like animatronic,
yeah, like animatronic
Disneyland
things. But like that,
things.
they still talk about that, and I still see things on social media.
Yeah,
about
that was
And
major.
but to creatively like integrate those things together to get a result is kind of that's the cool part of it, like of the marketing and the creative.
Have you always been creative, like even as a young person?
I don't. Yeah, I mean, I think that I can dig up some. My mom has some photos of me drawing things. I don't think that I was ever like the best artist, but I think that like when it came to computer art, I was a lot better using Photoshop and like the technical, the tools. The technical side is more me, and like being able to do that. And I can't say that I'm a master at any, Photoshop, Illustrator, or whatever. I know enough to be dangerous, and I know what's better is I know to like look for the people that are great at doing what they do in those specific areas. So whether it be Photoshop, like After Effects, whatever it is, to help, and then being dangerous enough to know when somebody's not doing it the right way,
Sure.
of, or like taking too long to do something.
And have you always been interested? I know, like, I've been over to your house and like you've got a lot of gadgets and like you got drones, you got the DSLRs. Have you always been into gadgets like that?
So like I'm always buying the newest tech thing. I mean, I have like robots at the house, like delivery robots, and I'm playing with like apps and developing things on that. And I think part of it's just like keeping fresh with like tech. So like I have every single new DJI drone or product that comes out.
I have your controller, by the way.
Okay.
I've been borrowing it, so I've been trying to learn like the FPV and like using the simulators and stuff like that. I'm still very like scared to take it out. It's very intimidating.
It's different. It's like the FPV is a completely different thing because it's kind of like going from like a 2D world to a 3D world. So like if you're great at using Photoshop, doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to be great at doing a 3D type project.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's kind of like that same mentality. You got to, maybe not for everyone, and that's like a different thing, but it's cool.
It's so cool. But what it feels like to me is like the difference between when you're driving manual versus like an automatic transmission sort of thing. Like you can't, like when you launch a normal drone, if you want to just hover in place, you just let the controller go.
Yeah.
But on FPV, if it's like you want the drone to do that, you have to hold it in a very specific like tension point.
But, with like drones lately, like I used to pack in when we go travel almost an entire suitcase of drones and like the big ones.
Yeah, like
and
the
like
Phantoms and all that.
Now I take like two of the smallest ones just because it's like low profile and I want to enjoy my thing, but at the same time you want to like get content. So I have like a Mini 3 Pro, which is great because it does like the portrait mode, and that's awesome for Instagram. But like those are like my go-to things because it's like it's good enough, and you don't need to take the Mavic 3 Cine, which is like awesome.
Yeah,
but it's like really heavy. I mean, it's like a quarter of your suitcase is the
and once you have the case and all the batteries,
everything and stuff in it. So you kind of like develop this like kind of practical attitude about stuff. And then I always take 2 drones because I always lose lose one on the trip, falling in the water or hitting something or trying to do some kind of crazy drone shot.
Yeah, but you get a lot of like, I remember, and even like again on that first project, the Bora music video, that was some awesome like orbiting of
Yeah,
Lydia in
that
the
was like the
water.
first, and I mean DJI has really kind of like made it easy for people to do some really cool creative shots with just a one button push.
Yeah, I mean, and the Avata too, I was blown away like with the joystick.
Yeah.
Like how intuitive that like my mom was flying that
Really,
around.
that's
It was
awesome.
it was so cool and like with the goggles. But what's your favorite drone right now?
I mean, practical. I mean, I like the FPV drones, but like
Yeah.
practically doing like the travel photos and videos. I like the Pro or the Mavic 3 Pro is my go-to because I like to flip the mode and because it's like easier than I don't have to like think about what it's going to look like when I crop it
Sure.
to be portrait for like Instagram, format. For like a whether it be like a story or whatever
I think they're one of the first drones that
flips it,
implemented that.
yeah.
Yeah, it does that flip, which is super cool because otherwise you'd
Yeah, because
always be cropping.
sometimes
it.
if you're doing it and you're doing it like landscape, and then you kind of have to like think in your head like, hey, when I change the
You
format
flip
of
it and
this,
squish
you're
it.
gonna like lose a lot of like the background and stuff. So
Mm-hmm.
a lot of the things like I shot for like Lydia, they were shot like landscape mode, and then you're like, okay, now we want to use it for like an Instagram story, and now she's in it and she looks good, but like you're missing like a whole bunch of like the background.
Yeah, the composition
The
is totally
the composition's
different.
off because you were intending it to be like landscape mode, and then you kind of like, okay, now it's like 1920 by 1080. you know,
Well, I'm hoping you're bringing that to Japan. And
Yeah.
can get some cool footage from
hopefully
that.
there's
Yeah,
some
I'd love
like
to.
amazing things. I don't know like how much we'll do a bunch. I'm like looking forward to the food,
Oh man,
like
yeah.
like seeing a bunch of things, like taking photos. I'll get the drone out here and there, but like it's more like I want the experience and the culture and things, so that this one might be a little bit more camera and that type of stuff. Like,
Sure. Well, but that'll be amazing no matter what. Um, I guess I want to kind of leave with, I consider you a very successful guy. Trying to get as many good sound bites about like what it takes to be successful. What kind of advice can you give to somebody, especially people in the creative field, of like how to just be successful with what they're doing with their business, personal development, any kind of things like that. What advice would you give to any people
so
out
for
there?
creative people, sometimes it's like the thing that you're most passionate about. I don't know, there's like two schools of thought in this. One is you could do what you're most passionate about and be really good at it and sell it to somebody else and then make a lot of money with it. Or you can kind of keep it for yourself and do something else. Because I think that like creatively for me, a lot of this type of stuff, when a client was telling you what to do and you don't agree with them on a lot of things, it diminished it for me. And then when I got out of that and I could start to do it for myself, I like regained the passion of wanting to do it more.
Sure.
And I didn't have somebody really telling me like, hey, do this. And I'm like, you're completely wrong. But you're paying, so I'm going to do it. the way
Right.
that
Yeah.
you want,
Yeah.
You want me to do it, whatever you say. I don't, I guess you got to like try. I know it's really hard for people, but like during the pandemic, I heard that there was more like millionaires created than any period of time.
Oh,
ever.
some people, it was
Because people went
yeah.
and started their businesses and they went out and like they took a risk and they said like, hey, my 9 to 5 job is not looking really good. Let me like think about something, and they went and did it. And then really like kind of think practically about it and like think outside the box. It's like I think that this is a really good idea, and maybe like my whatever friends might do it, but like what if I like switch shoes and I look at like my customer, do they think that this is a good idea? Is this something that they want to do? Because you can't like build things necessarily the way that you want them, because it may not be like in line. You might not be the same demographic or whatever with the people that would end up buying your service or product. So
Yeah, and I guess it's also like sort of kind of knowing yourself, and like if there's something creative you want to do, are you trying to do that to fulfill your passion or to make a living, or both?
Yeah.
Like for myself, like why I got into making films and videos was I want to work in films one day. But when you're starting out, it was like hard to work on a movie in any capacity. So it was like, how can I play with cameras and all this world, but like also make money? So that's when I got into like digital marketing through video and helping businesses do that and kind of gain a lot of those skills that I, will take over to do my passion later on.
Yeah. And I think like collaborating with people is like one of my other things is, 33% of zero is not a good number. And
Sure.
so I know that you would hate to think of like, hey, I'm giving away 66% of my business or something to some other people. But like sometimes that's the best solution because that collaboration and that group and the working together with people and having different responsibilities and whatever, and that kind of, back and forth is the magic that makes something really good happen. Like, as much as I have disagreed with my partner sometimes on certain things, that like back and forth and the pull and the disagreement of stuff, the balance of that was, really good and really fruitful. And I can't say that that's going to happen in every situation, but like in mine, I know that I wouldn't be where I am today without working with other people and great people together.
Yeah. And I think it goes back to what you were saying before about, working with a team and sort of like sometimes a team can be even greater than the sum of its parts. Sure. Like you can't do it all and be a master of everything because there's too many things and some things are so specialized.
Yeah, I mean it's like even I have like a lot of restaurants now and stuff, and like my father came from restaurants, and today it's so different. The aspects of what it takes to run a restaurant.
Oh man.
It's crazy today because you got to be like social media master, like all of these aspects of the business, but you are a chef. You can't be social media photographer and then like promoter and, dealing with like Yelp reviews and all of this stuff and then running the front of the house. But, back in the day, people used to do that. You had like a mom and pop shop with like a one-man operation and they did this. Now it's so much more complex with like the aspects of social media, like, reviews, that type of stuff, and then promotion and all the technical things and even technical things inside of like the business, like operational point of sale machines and stuff. And I don't really know many people that can have that big of a bandwidth of talent to do all of those aspects, and that you really got to have a team.
Yeah. And I mean, there's so many moving pieces and it's all got to result in as smooth of a experience as possible.
And otherwise you can try to do it and you're probably not doing it well. So like you're really, not managing your Yelp reviews and that type of stuff well, or like you're doing a horrible job with your social media and it's because you shouldn't be doing it. Somebody else should be helping you, or you should hire somebody or, whatever. I know it's hard for people to do that, but then you got to look at the reward. If you do it right, it's wonderful.
No, 100%. As someone who, you've seen sort of like the world before Google to now, what are some of the major trends that you've noticed and things that people should think about like in the coming years with either marketing or creative or anything around that sphere?
I don't know. Some of the things that are really interesting to me is like the more integration of like the goggles that eventually it's getting close to where you're going to have some kind of sunglasses and you're going to have like kind of like a heads up display inside.
Oh,
and you're
that'd
going to be able
so
to see
cool.
different things. So like in maps, it's going to take you to the restaurant and you're going to have like integration with like social media and all kinds of cool things inside of your eye all the time instead of it being on your phone. And it's crazy to see that like evolution like that, and then seeing things like chat GPT and the AI like created content and stuff, like how that's really kind of changing the game of stuff that people are doing this in a different way. And I kind of laugh at some of the stuff. It's kind of crazy, and then some of it's like, hey, this is it's the start, but this is the future of where this type of thing is going. I don't know, like pumping out like more and more content that's pretty good and it's getting better is going to eliminate people, like copywriters, for example. I mean, there'll probably always be a need for a copywriter, but it's really interesting how some of these things, like if you're like a bottom level copywriter, the computer can outright you for days and seconds and, whatever. Like for some businesses, they would be like, why would I hire these people when you can just generate this type of stuff? Yeah. It's the same thing, when I started doing websites, we would charge people hundreds of thousands of dollars to do what I could probably do in one day now with like templates and WordPresses and, creatively like developing that type of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So it's you gotta like that's the pivot is you gotta kind of see and anticipate some of those things coming down the line and be sure that you're not like
Gonna get steamrolled by
steamrolled by like some of these things.
Yeah, no, that's actually here. I was talking about this with George too on the show. Is I've made it an effort for our department to like try to get ahead of some of this stuff because I see it right now. We're in an interesting time where, in good use case scenarios, like using Midjourney to create like digital backgrounds for some of the ads that we make, or using Chat GPT to just help us generate some ideas that we can then, us humans can then kind of elaborate off of. It's a great tool, right? Just like how, like back in the day, to build like a nice looking website, you needed to code all that stuff, and now you can just use Elementor.
Everything used to be coded by hand. I mean, we used to like I was before even editors where it would like help you to do code. You were typing like every single key of every website by hand.
Which like
now
back in the day, I couldn't. I think we had like one HTML class in like college, and it was just so basic. And trying to design a website, it was just like there's no possible way. And then eventually like Elementor and Wix, and for if you want to get off of that.
But it makes it a lot easier for like marketing people to kind of get in there, and they can make content changes. And then people kind of, if you didn't get out of that, you were in a bad position because it was a lot of money to like update a website, for example. It's like, well, why would I pay you $150 an hour or whatever it is to update something that I can go in there myself, and it's like on a template, and I can go and put in a new page for this or page for that. But then there's always kind of the balance. It's like you can never really remove like great creative people. Mm-hmm. So like I don't really see that as being like that's eliminated. So like if people that can see that, and like strong business minded people that have like good ideas of how to do, that's not something that's a robot or something that's going to go away at any time.
No, I don't see that.
It's more of like the low level maintenance type things.
And like a lot of grunt work, I think. Thankfully can.
But that's the same thing with kind of like robots in general, robotics. It's going to eliminate. It's not going to eliminate the high level people. For the most part, it's like a lot of the McDonald's store worker with the kiosk. You can order things, and you can order it and get it going. Cleaning robots, or like the ones that are in the kitchen that are doing things. I mean, it's like more of the low level tasks and whatnot.
Yeah. What are some of are there any other AI programs that you've been interested in or seen lately?
No, I've been playing around with like some of the like image generators, which are super crazy.
Yeah.
Like the cool things that they can do with that. And then, I like the social media things that help you to do like timing of like video editing. So like if you pop in some photos and you put them into like the timeline and it goes to the beat. I mean, that was something that even for like video editing would take you hours and hours at one point in time to get something good. And now you can push like a button.
You just upload like a batch of photos and a song.
And I mean, for the most part, it gets pretty good for like the average person. And then, somebody else on a very high level is going to want a really creative, like custom piece done, which is, you're never going to be able to, somebody will be able to see the difference between that like custom done piece and then the auto generated one. But for the most part, the auto generated one for a lot of people, it's really good. And it's better than their,
Yeah, and I think the other thing too, which is what caught my attention about all this, because I feel like we're in this weird moment, kind of similar where we were like when social media first came out, or when like Web 2.0 kind of first came out. Is like this is kind of a turning point thing. But what I know to be true as a producer is like content is king. And having, you want to overwhelm your audience with lots of different content all the time and as consistently as possible. And I do see a use case for using AI to augment your ability to create massive amounts of content with finite resources, So, I think that creators that can use it, like I said, as a tool to help do that, but know that like it's not going to do the whole job for you. You're still going to have to like edit stuff or use it as like
perfect yet.
It's not perfect yet.
But I mean, you're getting to things like even in like a real estate market, a lot of the automation of the way that it does, and like responses and different ways that people are like getting leads, and like automatically it sends out some kind of response. It's taking out a lot of the manual stuff that used to happen. Like somebody used to say like, hey, if I got a phone call from somebody, what do I do with it? And then you would kind of take the lead and do this with it. And now you put it into something and it kind of like keeps it going, and it keeps,
you can create these automated,
fostering that relationship. And
and
that's like a beautiful thing. It's cool and helpful.
Yeah, and it helps the customer ultimately, especially if you're making like a workflow that's like, okay, if someone sends in a lead, it should trigger like us to send out a proposal
video,
or something, or
like
a video
of like how to do this, and then like they do something, and then you say like, okay, you keep pushing them along the buying cycle until you get them, and then after that you keep new product, whatever it is, and email marketing, SMS marketing. It's crazy.
It's pretty nuts. It's a pretty wild world we're getting into, but I don't want to take up too much of your time today. I really appreciate. I know you're a busy guy, and I really appreciate you coming in. I just want to have you, if you don't mind, I'm going to have you look into this camera. Anything you want to plug? It can be any one of your companies. The Las Vegas Justice League.
Yeah, if you're interested in looking more at what we're doing with the Las Vegas Justice League, it's vegasjusticeleague.com. We've solved 6 cold cases so far, and you can actually even donate $10 towards a case. We've had 3 cases that we've processed based on community donations. So
that's
great. It doesn't have to be the $5,000. You can, do your little bit if you feel so.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
And it brings a lot of closure to the families. So,
and let's not leave out your lovely wife. Where can people find
Lydia Ansel? You can check out all of her stuff on lydiaansel.com or on her Instagram at Lydia Ansel. LYDIAANSEL.
Awesome. Well, Justin, thanks again, man. It's always a pleasure hanging around with you. I feel like I've learned stuff when I'm around you. Just like it's nice being in the presence.
Cool. Always a pleasure working with you, and look forward to doing some cool stuff in the future.
As always, yeah. Thank you so much, and thank you all for watching Heroes on Set. We'll see you next time.